Hello, everybody, and welcome to the College Football Tonight here on Herb FM Sports Radio. We're back at the home office here in the good old Baltimore area, and we have Chase Kidley with us from Hero Sports. Chase, thanks for joining us tonight. We're in week 6 of college football, so what's been the surprise for you?
Maybe the quarterback drama, I think, is probably the big one. A lot of the players, in terms of the national players, your Alabamas, your Clemsons, we kind of knew they were going to be good, but I think I've been a little surprised by what's happened at the quarterback position with those teams, particularly what's happened at Clemson the last week and a half. I mean, all the drama with Chase and all that that's happened, that is definitely something that I don't think anybody could have foreseen. So that's sort of the surprise. And maybe, I guess, you've got some other teams that are sort of trying to break onto the scene. I think some people looked at West Virginia in the preseason and thought, all right, maybe that's a team that can make some noise, but, a lot of people weren't sold on the defense. Kentucky has kind of come out of nowhere. A couple of teams struggling unexpectedly, UCLA, Nebraska. So they're kind of all over the place, but that's what you get every season. There's always people that come out of the woodwork that you're not prepared for.
Mm-hmm. Well, this weekend is rivalry week, so you have Florida State and Miami playing each other. Miami's a very good squad team. They're ranked, and Florida State's struggling, but they're going to play their rivals, and they're going to play them tough.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Florida State, it seems like a team that doesn't really have an identity at this point. The offensive line feels like it's not even a work in progress. It feels like it's a struggle, and so when I look at that game, I always expect rivalry games to be close, but I think Miami's got a lot of advantages at the line of scrimmage. I think that's going to be tough for Florida State.
And then you got also in the ACC, you have Syracuse and Pitt playing each other, and that's a cross-rival game, but an old Big East pretty much. And all those old Big East games, I'm always excited to see. They even go back to Virginia Tech and Boston College. The cool thing about Syracuse this year is I feel like the talent they have up front on both sides of the ball makes them sort of a sneaky competitive player. So I am interested to see. I think Pitt's probably not going to be able to match them, but I do think sort of looking farther down the line, I think Syracuse could offer an interesting challenge in the ACC that maybe people aren't looking for just yet. And I was looking at your Twitter handle. You're a JMU alumni, so let's talk about your Dukes. Yeah, they played against NC State first game of the year, played them tough, and then since then they've been rolling everybody out of the ACC, the CAA, literally by 50 points.
Yeah, I mean, JMU the last 2 or 3 years has really been sort of a shockingly impressive team. And I think when people think about FCS football, they think, okay, it's an inferior product. There are less scholarships. It's sort of a lesser version of football. But when you watch JMU, they look like a Power 5 team. They're really good at the line of scrimmage. They've got strong offensive pieces. They're consistent. They almost never make mistakes. And when you look back at that NC State game, they looked better conditioned than the Wolfpack. It was a really hot day down in Raleigh. It was really humid. Lots of people getting fluid during and after the game. They looked better conditioned. And I know the final score was 24-13, but that was a 4-point game with 2 minutes to go. Mm-hmm. And NC State needed a big play and a late touchdown to sort of fend off JMU. And I think a lot of NC State fans watched that game and thought, oh, my God, I thought we were going to be good this year. And in reality, it was just JMU's a really good team. You can make the case that JMU's actually the best team that NC State has played to this point in the season.
Well, I agree with you because they were supposed to play West Virginia, but with the hurricane, that got postponed, and that's never going to be played at all. If they face each other in the bowl game, that might be played, but that's one of those games that you wish that was rescheduled because you could see Greer against Finley.
Yeah, I mean, talk about. I think those two guys probably end up being the top 2 quarterbacks taken in the draft next year. When you look at Finley, he's not the consensus number 1 pick, but he's a lot of guys' number 1 picks. He's sort of a pro-style offense. He looks good in the pocket. He does a lot with. I don't want to say he doesn't have a lot around him, but it's not like you look at the other pieces on NC State's offense and go, wow, there's a lot of great players here. He sort of exceeds expectations for that team, and I think that's what a lot of NC State quarterbacks have done. They really proved themselves with sort of some B-level players. So I think Finley's really good. And then Greer, I know he's not highly rated by a lot of scouts, but we see this every year. A guy comes on, maybe he wins the Heisman, maybe he doesn't, but he shoots up boards late just because there's a premium on quarterbacks in the National Football League. So I think they both end up getting taken in the first round.
Yeah. Well, Chase, thanks for joining me tonight. I hope to talk to you throughout the season, and we'll talk more throughout the year, and hopefully enjoy the work. What game are you covering this weekend?
I'm actually off this weekend. I'm going to a wedding in West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
But most of the time, I'm concentrated on. I pay attention to the ACC stuff, but usually I'm watching CAA football. JMU is usually playing somebody and beating the crap out of them. So I pay attention to a lot of the Mid-Atlantic stuff.
That's great. Chase, thanks for joining us. We'll be right back here on the College Football Tonight.
Homer Jones and Big John Talley had a big crap game going back in the alley. And I kept rolling them sevens and winning all them pots. My luck was so good I could do no wrong. I just kept on rolling and controlling them bones. Finally they just threw up their hand and said, when you hot, I said, yeah. When you're hot, and when you're not, Put all the money in and let it roll again. When you're hot, just getting ready to roll them again when I heard something behind me. I turned around and there was a big old car. He said, hello, boys. Then he gave us a grin and said, look like I'm going to have to haul y'all in and keep all that money for evidence. I said, well, son, when you hot. He said, yeah, when you're hot, When you're not, You can split it all down at City Hall. I said, yeah, when you're hot, you're hot. La, 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 la. Took us into court, I couldn't believe my eyes. The judge was a fishing buddy that I recognized. I said, hey, Judge, old buddy, old pal, I'll pay you that $100 all you if you get me out of this spot. So he gave my friend a little fine to pay. He turned around and grinned at me and said, 90 days, Jerry, when you hot. And I said, thanks a lot. When you're hot. When you're not. You let my friends go free and throw the book at me. He said, well, when you're hot. I said, well, I'll tell you one thing.
Tonight here on Herb FM Radio, and we always have somebody who is a local kid from the state of Maryland who's doing really well in college football. So this week, Brown is playing Rhode Island in the Governor's Cup up there in Rhode Island, and Antoine Casey, who is a senior from Bethesda, Maryland, who's on the phone with us right now. So, Casey, Antoine, thanks for joining us. Just talk about your senior year. You're playing a big game against your rivals there in the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah, no, it's a huge game every year for us. Like I said, it's a Governor's Cup. A lot on the line here, a lot of state pride on the line. So looking forward to playing a big game. We're playing at Lodi this year. But, we've had a pretty competitive series against them in my time here. I think we're 2-1 against them, so we're going to make that 3-1 this weekend.
So you are one of the captains on the offense. So how's it like being picked as one of the captains?
I mean, it's a huge honor, coming in the preseason, the summer, work hard, stay here this summer, stay proud this summer train, and to be named captain is a huge honor, like I said.
Yeah. So you've been when you were in high school, you were a two-time All Montgomery County tight end. So how did Brown get on your radar from the state of Maryland?
Right. So the recruiting process started at end of my junior season. My high school coach and I kind of worked on, sending the film out, and really, kind of schools started coming in. And Brown was one of them, and recruiting coordinator Frank Sheehan at the time did a tremendous job, ultimately picked Brown. Grandfather actually went here as well, so Sammy was a little biased in that.
Oh, that's great. And so it's like a family thing, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I was looking at your academics, 4 years on honor roll. I think I was only on honor roll for 1 year in high school, so that's fantastic. You're on an honor roll for for college, and probably you were in high school too, right?
Yeah. Right, yeah, no. So it's academics here are pretty tough, as one may imagine. But yeah, so really hitting the books, kind of developed that habit in high school and brought it over.
Nice. So what is the life after football for you? Are you going to try to go to the next level? Because I don't think there's a lot of Brown players are in the NFL, so that might be a good feather in your cap if you make it to one of the NFL teams.
Yeah, no, that would be huge, and that's looking down the road. That's definitely kind of one of the goals. But like right now, definitely more focused on game by game going through the season. But going back to Brown guys in the NFL, we had a few actually. James Stanley, fullback for the Patriots. And,
okay.
Zach Diassi, he's a long snapper for the Giants. And then recently we had a graduate last year, Dewey Jarvis. He's banking 53-man roster for the Falcons, and I think he's playing really well. So. We have games in the NFL. Doesn't have very often, like you said, but we have some recognition in that sense.
Yeah. So you were growing up in the Washington metro area. Did you watch a lot of Redskins games, or did you watch a lot of Ravens games? Because you're a tight end. I'm thinking tight end in the Ravens have Dennis Pitta, but down in Washington they didn't really have a good tight end except for Vernon Davis right now. But who did you grow up watching playing football?
Right. Well, I think kind of like in my earlier years, elementary school, middle school, Chris Cooley was a huge name. That's kind of who I've watched like early on, and then later on, I think Jordan Reed was, still is, great tight end. He's kind of like a wide receiver tight end type. So, kind of emulating his game was a huge for me. And also, I was the favorite tight end in the league is Brock. So that was also huge guy to watch for me developing as a player.
Yeah. Well, you're playing Rhode Island this week, and it's pretty interesting. People don't realize this is the 100th meeting against you guys, against Rhode Island, and nobody talks about this game at all. It's like, people don't realize Rhode Island is a good state for football, and they do have two good college teams that play each other every year.
Yeah, I mean, Rhode Island, like three main schools in Rhode Island are College Bryant and Rhode Island. It is a huge game, Governor's Cup. A lot on the line, and really looking forward to playing.
Yeah. Well, Antoine, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you have a great weekend against Rhode Island, and good luck the rest of the season. And hope to maybe one day I'll see you on pick you one of my fantasy football picks. You never know.
I hope so. All right, thank you, Chris.
All right, man. We'll be right back here on the College Football Tonight.
Right
Maryland Sports Radio, and we have the voice of the JMU Dukes, Dave Thomas, with us. Who the Dukes are home this weekend, take on a foe in Elon. This game last year, Dave, was a very tight one down there in North Carolina. So, what does James Madison need to do to put this game away early?
Well, I think just do what they do. I think the Dukes want to run the football, and that's going to be important to them. They're going to have to try to figure out, what Elon does defensively. That they do some things that confuse and keep teams off balance. But Donnie Kirkpatrick and his staff have been around a while, and they understand how this process works. And one of the things they're pretty good at figuring out is the chess match between offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. And JMU seems to be in a pretty good spot to make a move and do some good things. So I think just do what they do, run the football, but be balanced, throw it when they want to. And then, of course, defensively, try to slow down Elon because they are a really good offensive football team.
Well, last week you guys completely went to Richmond, and I think you guys are still scoring right now. I think I see the score still going. So just talk about broadcasting that game, watching JMU putting up 63 points on their rival.
Yeah, it's a game the last couple of years, Chris, honestly, that have been really tightly contested. I had gone down to the last drive of the game. So what happened on Saturday was really not expected. And the first quarter was sort of the indication we thought we were going to get what we were going to get. At 7-3 at the end of the quarter, the Dukes score on the opening kickoff when they take that back and they're able to put it in the end zone. And then really, trying to move the ball offensively, moved it a little bit, but not into the end zone. Richmond able to move the ball, but again, not able to score. So 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, and then the second quarter, JMU found a bit of a rhythm. And when the Dukes get on a roll, they seem to have a tendency of really being able to do good things. But Richmond just made too many mistakes. They're a really good football team, and Coach Houston said it a number of times this week, and I think it bears repeating. You look at the score, and you might think that Richmond's not a good squad, but they've got a lot of talent. They just made mistakes, and JMU took advantage. And realistically, it comes down to football games in 4 or 5 plays. Richmond made 4 or 5 plays early that the Dukes were able to capitalize on. And it was a fun game to broadcast, because it was so tense in the first quarter to see how things get rolling and just continue to roll for JMU. That's not going to be the case every week, and it was a fun one to be a part of when it's involving the arch rival.
Well, the Dukes haven't lost a CA game in 20 straight games. Hopefully I don't jinx them because, this game is going to be a good game against Elon. But just talk about this streak that they're going. You don't see this a lot in the CA with somebody winning 20 straight games in the conference.
You're right. It is rare for the simple fact that this league is so tough. And, I think it shows with how many teams are in the top 25. In the situation you run into by the end of the year is teams beating up on themselves. But what Coach Mike Houston has done and his staff is they treat every game, and they'll tell you it's the biggest game of the year because it's the only game they're playing this week. And with that mentality, they don't look at anything else. They stop looking back after Sunday's practice. They're only looking at the game that's right on the schedule. They don't know. It's funny, last year I asked some kids, so are you sure you're not looking ahead? And they go, who do we play? And I thought they were joking, and they were legitimately didn't know who they were playing in 2 weeks. They're so focused on the opponent. And two, I think we forget that these kids are student athletes as well. So they've got, their class load, they've got football, and then they're trying to have some sort of semblance of normal student life. So as far as being in deep, like the fans are looking at the schedule and speculating out about games on the horizon, they're not doing that. They're focused on what they've got to remember for this week. And I think that's been the big key, is just to take it one game at a time. The biggest game of the year. Coach Houston used to have a saying when he was at Lenore-Ryan, one play at a time. And they do that, one play at a time, one game at a time, and not let your focus get too wide.
Yeah, there's a kid on JMU who's from Baltimore, Rondell Carter. He leads the team in sacks. Let's talk about him. He's a senior, a transfer from Rutgers, to JMU. I guess he's, enjoying playing down there in Harrisonburg.
Yeah, he wanted to be with his brother. His brother's Robert Carter, and Rondell told me last year when he came in, he had made the decision to transfer, to be with his brother, to play with his brother before JMU won the 2016 national championship. That had no real bearing on Rondell coming here. But he's been an infusion of energy. He's a terrific kid to talk to, got a great smile, great personality, but he flips the switch, and when he's on the field, he's a competitor. He's the guy who really, I think, drives this defense. He and Dimitri Holloway, the linebacker, those two guys are your leaders out there. They're the guys that understand better than anybody else what's going on. And he's, again, you got to account for him. You got to keep up with him. And the advantage that JMU has is the three guys playing beside him, they're just as good. So Rondell is the heartbeat. He's the spirit. He's the eyes and the wisdom out there. But you got four guys on that front line that are so good. He leads them, and he leads by example. And he'll talk when he needs to talk, but he lets his play do the talking most of the time, and those guys just follow suit.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're Paul Johnson, I wish you kept Marcus Marshall down there, because if you're Paul Johnson, you wish you kept him around, because Marshall's a very good running back, and he feels like is he healthier this year than last year?
Well, I think by the end of the year, everybody was kind of dinged up along the way. But, yeah, Marcus just wanted to get into a situation where he could run in space. And the triple option, that wasn't what he did. And he wanted to get back to what he did in high school. He wanted to be able to run in space. You know, his dad was a standout here. And so it was a perfect match when Marcus made the difficult decision. He told me it was tough. It was a tough thing to decide to make that decision to leave. But JMU was on the radar, and when he met with the coaches, they liked him, he liked them. It took him some time to grow into the new role, because the offense was so different. The lingo and the verbiage was so different. But we see what Marcus can do, and this year he's a little more accustomed to what's going on, and we've already seen this early in the year what he's capable of. And the good thing about Marcus Marshall is he doesn't have to be the one guy, because there are five guys in that running back room that can share that responsibility.
Exactly. Well, Dave, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast against Elon, and I hope to talk to you more throughout the year, and hope to see you in Towson at the end of the year.
Chris, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.
All right, we'll be right back here on the College Football Tonight.
Let me show you the nightlight. Let me show you the queens, the dudes, the class, the crews, the folks that inhabit the night. Let me set it right, baby. Dig in. I got to give you my warning. I got to tell you the streets alive. The sound of jive, just arrived. Try it for size for a while, for a while. Street life, hell in the city. Got to ring that white shot for back. Street life, say it ain't pretty. Got to know your way around, or somehow you might get hurt. Look out, son, these streets are hard.
Neil Diamond right there, Street Life. Thanks for tuning us in here. Season 2, Episode 6 here. Thanks for joining us here on Herb Sports Radio. I'm Chris Idell here in the control booth. We're back at the home office of Herb FM Radio this week, but we'll be back on the road next week. Back over to the what we want to call it, the satellite office. Coming up at 7:30, in 7 minutes we'll get Ken Sakura from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on. We'll talk Georgia Tech football, Friday night football down there in Louisville against the Cardinals, who lost to Florida State. And then Tom Worm, who is doing the Syracuse versus Pitt game up there in Heinz Field this weekend. We'll talk to him about that game because it's the old Big East. Coming up at 8 o'clock, Mike Burnup from Virginia Tech Radio Network, the analyst. We'll talk Virginia Tech taking on the Irish of Notre Dame. And at 8:10, we'll talk to Bob Black, the voice of the Richmond Spiders. We'll see how they're doing after losing to JMU by 63-10 last week. And then at 8:20, we'll have Jack Nolan, one of the analysts for Notre Dame Radio Network. We'll talk to him about the Irish side of things this week, because that game's prime time down there in Blacksburg, Virginia. And around 8:25, I had a nice chat with Gene Deckenhoff, the voice of FSU, Florida State. Herb FM Radio loves Florida State University. We talked to him about the rivalry between Miami and Florida State this weekend. So in the meantime, we'll get back to the great music here. Here's Gordon Linefoot with Carefree Highway here on the College Football Tonight here on Herb FM Radio.
Picking up the pieces of my sweet shattered dream, I wonder how the old folks are tonight. Her name was Anne, and I'll be damned if I recall her face. She left me now knowing what to do. Carefree highway, let me slip away on you. Carefree highway, you've seen better days, the morning after blues, from my head down to my shoes. Carefree highway, let me slip away on you. Turning back the pages to the times I love best, I wonder if she'll ever do the same. Now the thing that I call living is just being satisfied with knowing I got no one left to blame. Carefree highway, I got to see you, my old flame. Carefree highway, you've seen better days, the morning after blues, from my head down to my shoes. Carefree highway, let me slip away on you. Searching through the fragments of my dream-shattered sleep, I wonder if the years have closed her mind. I guess it must be wanderlust or trying to get free from the good old faithful feeling we once knew. Carefree highway, let me slip away on you. Carefree highway, you've seen the better days, the morning after blues, from my head down to my shoes. Carefree highway, let me slip away on you. Let me slip away on you. Carefree highway, I got to see you, my old flame. Carefree highway, you've seen better days, the morning after blues, from my head down to my shoes. Carefree highway, let me slip away on you.
Pepsi-Cola, it's the spot, 12 full ounces, that's a lot, twice as much for a nickel too. Pepsi-Cola is the drink for you. Nickel, 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 trickle, trickle, nickel, 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 trickle, 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 nickel, 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 nickel.
Show you the nightlight. And then to show you the queens, the dudes, the class, the crews, the folks that inhabit the night. Let me set it right, baby. Dig in. I got to give you my warning. I got to tell you the streets are life, the sound of jive, we just arrived, try it for size for a while, for a while. Alright! Street life, hell in the city, got to really watch out for facts. Street life, say it ain't pretty, got to know your way around, or somehow you might get hurt, get hurt, get hurt.
All right, folks, welcome back to the College Football Tonight. We have Ken Secura with us, who writes for the Atlantic Journal-Constitution, and Georgia Tech is traveling Friday night to Louisville to play the Cardinals they never played before. So, Ken, thanks for joining us. So, what's the feeling like around campus with Paul Johnson playing against a team that he has never played, or a Bobby Petrino team?
I think the players are pretty excited about it. They're at a point, they won their first game against Alcorn State, then lost the next three to South Florida, Pitt, and Clemson. And at that point, I think, there was a lot of frustration, and they were playing very well, and fans were mad. And beat Bowling Green, which obviously is not much an opponent, but to get to 2-3, and now to feel like, if it was just beat Clemson, it's best to beat Louisville, we'll get back to 3-3, back to about 100, and then that kind of sets up the rest of the schedule. So I think they're pretty fired up for this team. I guess they would be promoted, but they see it as an opportunity for them.
Yeah, Friday Night Football, the only game on national TV on ESPN, and it's pretty good against the Louisville team that's struggling. They're 0-2. They lost to Florida State last week on a Florida State came back with a last-minute touchdown, and they threw an interception that made the Seminoles win the game. But it's interesting. They're playing a team that they have never played.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it kind of took a while for second Clemson to get together in the rotation. But yeah, it's funny. They actually Tech played a team last week. Bowling Green's a little bit different. They're not a lower tier school, but yeah, Tech played for 20-some years and they never met. So it'll be interesting. Tech, Jonathan knows the coordinator, Brad Van Gorder, well. They think each other at another one. Van Gorder's in Notre Dame, and they have a history going back to when Van Gorder came in at Georgia Southern, where Paul had won 2 national titles. So there's some history there, but obviously, these schools themselves have known that will be a good one to watch.
Well, talk about Marshall. Is he fully healed? Because I know in the South Florida game he went out in the first half, second half. Is he back healthy now?
Yeah, I think maybe a week or two after that he was still a little gimpy, but he kept playing. But right now he's back. I don't know if he's 100% completely, but he's fine where it's not a factor. He was having some trouble throwing the ball, and they can obviously get better against Bowling Green, and also just hold on to the ball and pitching it effectively. And so Bowling Green isn't the defense that Louisville is, or certainly the Clemson was. So that'll be a good test for just to see how much he's come along. Either returning start, or he'd want him to play those in the first 4 games, and we'll see how he does against Louisville.
Yeah. Well, is Paul Johnson going to use that 2 quarterback thing? Because I know in South Florida he had the backup came in and he did pretty well, against South Florida. Is he ready to go just in case Marshall is struggling?
Possibly. Tobias Oliver came into that game mostly because that injury that we talked about, where Stephon hurt his toe.
Mm-hmm.
My sense of things is that Tobias, he's a dynamic player. He runs the ball hard and he's quick and elusive, but he doesn't have nearly the grasp of the offense that Daquan does. And I think Daquan, being a captain, being a senior, being a guy that I think everybody really respects. I think Paul's probably a little hesitant to pull him out, even if it's for a series or 2. I guess we'll see what happens. But I think maybe just for the sake of Daquan's confidence, but anything else, I think he's wanted to stick with them. But I guess you never know exactly what will happen.
Yeah. Well, if Georgia Tech somehow doesn't win this game, starting 0-3 in the ACC is not good at all. And how can they rebound from that to make a bowl game?
Boy, it'll be really tough because they'll be at 2-4. You need to get 4 wins in your last 6, and it's pretty tough. They got Duke, who's pretty good. Virginia Tech, obviously,
has done really well. But, the Old Dominion loss excluded. Miami's really good.
Mm-hmm.
You think you have a good chance with Virginia and North Carolina to get that 4 wins. That you can count on. But then the last game is Georgia. So you got counting 2 wins against Virginia, North Carolina, you have to win 2 out of 3. Miami, Virginia Tech, and Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and actually 2 more, I guess, with Georgia. So that's a tall order that you do it. But if you've already kind of shown who you are so far and losing to 2 of the weakest teams already in Pitt and Louisville, that doesn't bode well for the rest of the year. It's possible, but it'd be pretty tough.
Yeah. Well, the defense turned some 10 turnovers this year. That's ties 13th nationally. That's pretty good for the defense, and that's basically why those Yellow Jackets are still in these games.
Yeah, they're coming along. They're not, they got a new coordinator and Nate Woody who came from Appalachian State. They're from a yards perspective, certainly from third down percentage, conversion perspective, they're not doing great. But you watch them, they're getting better. Just the way they realize the ball, which I think is why they're doing well with turnovers. They got 10, I think, which is as many as they had all last year. So they're definitely getting better. I think they're learning. You can see small things like gap control, things like that are getting better. But it can take some time. And Louisville's not a great team. You'd like to see some more progress. But obviously, I'm sure Louisville looking at Georgia Tech the same way. But they're 2 and 3 just like us, and so it's a chance for them to win at home. But and I think Louisville actually played a pretty good game offensively against Florida State, except for that late turnover. So it'll be we'll find out how far both of them are coming along.
Yeah. Well, Ken, what are you going to do for Saturday? Because normally you do a college football game. What's the plan for Ken on Saturday?
Yeah, I'll fly back early to Atlanta, and I've got 3 kids and a wife who will be very eager to do anything but to watch college football. So that to let them decide how we have some of that.
Yeah. So you'll be basically doing a lot of gardening and all that stuff, and you'll be like, "Wow, I'm normally at a football game."
Maybe not gardening, but yeah, maybe go to the zoo or something like that.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for coming on tonight, and have a safe trip to Louisville on Friday night. Hopefully the weather's nice there in Louisville, because I know it's getting better over here on the East Coast. Except for today. Today's a little hot here in Maryland, but it's going to get some fall weather will be around the corner.
Oh, yeah, I like that very much so. Thanks, Chris.
All right, we'll be right back here on the College Football Tonight.
Still the same. Yeah, they were dancing and singing and moving to the grooving and just
folks. Welcome back to the College Football Tonight. Coming up at 7:45, Tom Worm, who is the guy from Raycom Sports. We'll talk to him on about the Syracuse taking on Pitt this weekend at Heinz Field. And at 8 o'clock, we'll have Mike Burnop from Virginia Tech Radio Network, the analyst. We'll talk to him. He's almost like the mayor of Blacksburg. We'll talk to him about this weekend's game against the Irish of Notre Dame, making their first trip ever to Blacksburg. Then we'll stay in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We got Bob Black, who is the voice of the Richmond Spiders. They're taking on Delaware this week. We'll talk to him, see how they could rebound after a tough loss to JMU. And at 8:20, Jack Nolan, who is one of the sideline reporters for the Irish Notre Dame Radio Network. We'll talk to him about his first trip to Blacksburg. So in the meantime, we'll come back to some great music here. Here is some Fleetwood Mac here on Herbert Fan Sports Radio. This is the College Football Tonight. The College Football Tonight. We have Tom Wormy with us, who is one of the broadcasters for Raycom Sports, and this week he's an old Syracuse alumni, and it's pretty interesting. You're doing a Syracuse-Pitt game up there in Pittsburgh, but you and Dave Archer and Harris, the lady on the sideline. So just talk about this game coming up for you against Pitt and you, Syracuse alumni.
Yeah, it's always fun to do a game involving the Orange, but it's great to work in the ACC. And honest to God, people don't believe me when I say this, but when I do a game and Syracuse is involved, I just want to see a good, competitive game with plenty of highlights. And for the most part, over the years, they've been playing for a long time, Syracuse and Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. They've been playing every year since 1955 when the Brooklyn Dodgers won the World Series. They deliver. They deliver points, excitement, close football games. Last year they played in the Dome. It was a tight ball game. And then 2 years ago, Dave and I were lucky enough, Dave Archer, my broadcast partner on Raycom Sports, were lucky enough to do the highest scoring game in the history of the Football Bowl subdivision in the modern era. 76-61, 137 combined points, and Pittsburgh was able to win the game. And it should be another fantastic matchup because both of these teams really need this one. Pittsburgh on a 2-game losing streak, and Syracuse coming off of that heartbreaker against the Clemson Tigers at Memorial Stadium.
Well, let's talk about Pittsburgh. Let's do their side of the football, the home team. What have they got to do? Because they're coming off a tough loss to Central Florida, and everybody who plays Central Florida right now, they're pretty good.
Yeah, that's a tough spot on the schedule for them. Central Florida now has won 17 in a row, and no one in the country's done and won more than that. And so the issue with Pittsburgh has been the second half and trying to play a complete ball game. It appeared a couple of weeks ago that they were on their way to that. Dave and I on Raycom Sports had a chance to do Pittsburgh at North Carolina, and they had the lead at halftime and could not hang on to it. They were up 28-21 at halftime against North Carolina, which is certainly having an up-and-down year, but that was their first home game because they were also supposed to play Central Florida, but because of Hurricane Florence, that game had been canceled. Technically, I believe it's still postponed. So Pittsburgh had a lead. They were producing offense. Kenny Pickett was running that offense very well. And then the second halves have been the issue for Pittsburgh all season long. It happened against Penn State, and that's the reason they're 2-3 right now. But Pat Narduzzi is just a fantastic coach. Pat Narduzzi and Dino Babers are easily two of my favorite coaches in the country, and I certainly have a liking for all of the coaches in the ACC. But Pat Narduzzi and Dino Babers always put on a great show for us, and they're so generous with their time during the week. You know, we have meetings and phone calls and conference calls, and so we try to get the in-depth stories. And Pat Narduzzi is always very forthcoming, and I fully expect him on Friday when we meet with the Pittsburgh coaching staff to really break it down for us and try to understand why they've been close but haven't been able to be successful, and how they might attack Syracuse, which is a very solid team, certainly on the offensive side of the ball. And again, almost pulled off an upset over Clemson for the second straight year, and really they were just a 4th and 6 away from beating the Tigers. Pittsburgh, 45-14 against Central Florida. That is really going to have a motivational factor, let's put it that way, for Pat Narduzzi and the Panthers.
Yeah, and with Syracuse, they have a good quarterback in Eric Dungy, who basically that guy is like one of those modern-day quarterbacks in the NFL. You hit him, but he still comes back and still plays. And you have a broadcast partner in Dave Archer, who used to play football too, so he's probably used to being knocked around and come back after somebody knocked him out.
Dave will tell you that when he played for the Falcons, he certainly loved all of his teammates, but he saw some of the defenders across the line of scrimmage up close and personal in his days for playing for the Atlanta Falcons. So Dave is a tough guy who loves tough quarterbacks, and Dungy's right up his alley. And the ironic thing is that Eric Dungy did not play in the game 2 years ago because he was out. He had a myriad of injuries a couple of years ago and was unable to play in the game against Pittsburgh. So Zach Mahoney, his backup quarterback, was in there, and he threw for over 400 yards and 5 touchdown passes. And Amba Adetawo, who was a transfer player at the time for Syracuse, had 5 TD grabs. So some of the personnel is going to be different. But Syracuse proved certainly that they were a team that was going to make a run at Clemson, going 4-0 early, on the cusp of the top 25. First time 4-0 since '91. If they can win against Pittsburgh to go 5-1, that'd be the first time since '99 that they've been able to do that. So they're returning to form. In '91 just happened to be my senior year. That year was the first year for head coach Paul Pasqualoni. That's how far back 1991 goes. And Coach Dick McPherson was on his way to the New England Patriots, and I was on my way out of the SI Newhouse School of Broadcasting. So I digress, but we go back a ways, myself and this football program at Syracuse University. But it's just going to be, even though Pittsburgh is struggling, yes, and Syracuse is coming off a loss, I really think the collision between these two teams is going to be very entertaining on Raytown Sports on Saturday, 12:20 kickoff.
Yeah, you being an alumni from Syracuse, do you try to stop yourself in the press box from cheering? Because I know I'm a big Met fan, and I can't go to a Met press box without cheering. Because
I'm broadcasting the game, I am, honest to God, equally excited at any spectacular play made by anybody on the field. If you've heard any of my ACC broadcasts, be it college football or basketball, while working for Raycom Sports, the ACC Network, ESPN, Fox Sports South, Fox Sports, whoever it may be, when you've got, and most of the work that I do is in the ACC. I work in the Big Ten a little bit, some in the SEC, but most of the work is in the ACC. I just love watching competitive athletics played at a very high level. And some of the performances that I get to witness from courtside, from the broadcast position, what have you, it just feels so lucky and honored to be able to watch it. So when anything great happens, I am right there with it. I'm very excitable when it comes to the moment when someone makes a spectacular play. I want to be right there and kind of translate that feeling to the viewers as well, who are probably 90% of them are invested in one of the two teams anyway. So I want to keep equal excitement for both teams. But it's good to see Syracuse having success, but I certainly wish Pat Narduzzi and the Panthers and all the ACC teams the very best this week and beyond.
Yeah. Well, Tom, it sounds like it's going to be an exciting game. Can it be a defensive game, too? Can it be like 3-0, like back in 1923 when they opened up Yankee Stadium?
Was that the Yankee? You talking about the Yankee Stadium game?
Yeah, the old one. Yeah, not the new one, but the old one, the House of Roof built.
Right,
yeah.
old Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that happened to be, from what I have seen from the documentation, that's when Yankee Stadium opened up that year, and it was the first football game played at Yankee Stadium. So, no, I think we're going to get more than 3 points. Based on previous history, the way the game was so close a season ago between these two teams, with Syracuse winning 27-24, and then 137 points the year before, I would dial up our Raycom Sports channel and leave it there, because you don't know what's going to happen between these two teams. It is a classic Eastern football rivalry when they get together, 78th time.
And it's also the old Big East, so it's pretty cool to see all the old Big East and the ACC, and it's like, it's just like the old times for Syracuse and Pitt.
It is really cool that these two programs can continue their playing relationship